Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury. Be joined here shortly by Trayana Holiday. It's a real bad accident there on I-5 northbound on Holgate. And she's jammed up. They've been stuck in traffic there for a while. So hopefully she'll be popping in with us. Today we have special guest Kevin Schofield of SCC Insight. Matter of fact, let's bring in Kevin right now.
Hey, good morning.
What's up, Kevin? I know you were supposed to join me in maybe like 15 minutes from now, but Bay Holiday, she's stuck in traffic. So, man, welcome to the show early.
Wow. Okay. Well, there is no substitute for Trey. She is the best.
See, you always.
I am a very poor substitute for the awesomeness that is Trey Holiday.
Clearly, you know all the right stuff to say, man. We've been. Let me bring this in over here. We've been kind of watching the activity going on over there at the nation's capital. Of course, today was Inauguration Day. We got a new president today and a new vice president. And I know you watched the inauguration live earlier. We'll play some clips from that. And actually, let's jump right into it. We'll start right here when the nation saw its very first, as Amy Klobuchar repeatedly said, very first African-American, very first Southeast Asian, and very first woman vice president sworn in office.
What you are all about to be part of, America, is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first African American, our first Asian American, and our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, it is my great privilege to welcome to the inaugural stage the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, that was Vice President now Kamala Harris being sworn in. What were your thoughts in that moment, Kevin?
We can have hope again. We've got a lot of problems to fix in this country, but we can have hope that we have real leaders who actually want to fix them now. And just the moment, so many firsts in there, with Vice President Harris being sworn in by Justice Sotomayor being the one administering the oath of office. I think, what a great moment. And, it's the start of a new chapter. The tyrant Donald Trump has been removed from power. There's so much hard work in front of us, but wow, doesn't it feel great to have people in office who we can hope really want to solve those problems for once? I mean, what a long dark tunnel we've been in for 4 years, and it feels like maybe, just maybe, we're starting to come out of it.
Yeah, maybe, maybe, just maybe. There's literally tens of millions of people in America who now feel the opposite, which is like, man, it's a real divided nation that we live in right here. Next clip is, of course, now President Biden getting the oath of office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States,
and will, to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
And with that moment there, we now have a new president of the United States, the 46th president, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Your thoughts?
Let me just call it a little thing that you may have missed. So his oath of office is actually different from Vice President Harris's, and they cut out the most difficult thing to say, which so many presidents and vice presidents and even justices administering the oath have stumbled over, which is the part where they say without mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And as someone who with President Biden shares a speech impediment, I was relieved that they didn't ask him to do that. That he could have this moment and not sort of stumble out of the gate potentially on it. And if you listen to his speech, and I don't know if you're going to show any segments of the speech. Cut me off if you're planning on doing that. But he has great speechwriters, and the president's speechwriters apparently they worked with him for 20 years. They know who he is. They know sort of not only what he can say, but sort of how to bring out the best of him. And it was really a fabulous speech. But just the value of being able to sort of get his words out the way he wants to get them out is just it tends to be a hidden thing, but it's a really powerful thing.
Right. And just for people just joining us, Trey Holiday, we're always on this with people. She's stuck. There's a very big accident there on I-5. And so I'm not just hogging the camera here in the studio today. We're actually just waiting for Trey to arrive. And in a second here, we're going to play this poem by Amanda Gorman. But before we do that, everybody is just talking Capitol Hill. They're like, how do you bring people together? How do we unify? I think the last episode of Clapback Culture, that was a big discussion with Mike Davis and Julia Jesse as to, is this even really a nation that wants to unify? And is this a country that's ever really been unified outside of major events that have occurred that's brought people together for a little bit of time? Do we really ever have a track history of unity, or it's just people's voices have never been able to come to the surface? And so because they're silenced, people think there's unity.
Yeah, I think, those are really good issues. We're certainly a country that values and is dedicated to dissent, right? That's why we have a First Amendment, right? And at some level, probably almost certainly not enough, we're a country that is dedicated to diversity. We haven't been very good at it. Absolutely, we have not been very good at diversity on paper and in words, and in the Constitution. We have a lot of things in there, whether it's religious diversity, whether it's diversity of speech and of thought, that speaks to the right principles. But there are lots of chapters in our history as a country where we really haven't lived up to that, and really haven't thought broadly about all the things that we have to do to live up to the principle of diversity and dissent and arguing. I don't think we're ever going to be a country where we all agree. Right. And again, I think that's sort of a bedrock principle that we can't expect that. Right. But we have to find the ways that we can come together to it sounds trite, but to form a more perfect union, right? To figure out how we make this country better, right? There's also, going back to the, Declaration of Independence, there's a notion built into there that, that this is still a work in progress, and it's probably always going to be a work in progress, right? We haven't got this figured out. We don't know how to make the perfect government and how to be the perfect country. And it's always going to be hard work to do it. And again, wow, we've got a lot of hard work right now because we just took a bunch of steps back over the last 4 years.
Right. And we'll see, one of the first things that President Biden is doing, they said he's going straight to his desk, issuing executive orders, undoing some of the policies that Trump put in place, or put in place back in policies that Trump undid. So, we'll see how that goes there. We have this poem from Amanda Gorman that we want to be able to share with the audience. My colleague, Trey Holiday, has also arrived. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break. We're going to play this poem here, and then we're going to go and jump into these other issues while you're here on the show today. We're going to be talking about policing legislation down there in Olympia. It turns out, kind of breaking news here, that it turns out that there was at least two other officers now, that were that were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. Don't know the extent of that, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. And a few other things going on in City Hall. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie. This practice. Pondering my next move. Staring at my track list. Hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist. Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. We're going to have to give Trey Holiday the full screen. We're going to bring you back here in a second, Kevin. Trey Holiday is in the studio. Before I send it over to you real quick to say hello, Trey, want to say thank you to all of our viewers out there. Let you know how much we appreciate you. We just played a donate ad right there. Great reminder that we stay on air because of your donations and your support. You can go to whereweconverge.com/donate, and you can subscribe. You become a monthly subscriber for as little as $5 per month, or you can make a one-time donation there. Also, a good way to support. We got merch, whereweconverge.com/shop. You can check some stuff out there as well. And now, welcome to the studio, Trey Holiday.
Well, thank you, Big O. Wow, I literally just passed the accident that was causing so much traffic on I-95 going north, or I-5 going north this morning. And honestly, I've never seen this, bro. There was two cars, both flipped on their head, bro. So, shout out to those that were involved in the accident right now. Sending love. I mean, apparently there was people that got rushed.
4 injuries.
Yeah, 4 injuries, and the fire trucks actually picked them up and rushed them to the hospital. But I mean, when you see the aftermath of certain accidents, you're like, whoa, like that's what I was stuck in traffic all this time for. Insane. And so shout out to those first responders. Again, sometimes we don't remember all of the work that goes in. So just shout out, man.
Well, good to have you here in studio. We'll bring Kevin Schofield back in. And I was actually talking to Kevin earlier. We were. You can bring Kevin back in. There we go. I was talking to Kevin earlier, watching kind of back and forth of the inauguration while putting the show together. And something that I think caught us both by surprise was this poem by Amanda Gorman from Los Angeles, 22 years old, a poet laureate, I think is the correct term here. This is about a 5-minute clip. We usually don't play stuff that's too long, but you can't really just cut a poem up like that. So we want to play this here, and I'm glad that you're here to actually see this track.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Trey Holiday.
Oh my gosh. Wow. You know, when we think about we talk about Black brilliance all the time. But to see it today, of all days, just precious to be honest. And what an amazing poet laureate right there. To be honest, I'm overwhelmed because we think about the movement becoming so much more than what our ancestors ever hoped for, so much more than so many who have given their lives to ensure that democracy holds true in this country, to ensure that freedoms and liberation is given to all in this country. When I think about the movements I'm a part of, equity for all, equity now, it's a beautiful thing to hear that spoken at the inauguration so eloquently and so perfectly. To be honest, that was a great clip to show, and it definitely touched me this morning for sure. It was definitely needed.
Kevin Schofield.
Yeah, so it's really funny. A couple of years ago, Mayor Durkin got in my face because I dared to say that one of her big speeches had no soaring rhetoric. And that was the best example I've seen in a very, very long time of soaring rhetoric. And, we can't get distracted by it. There are a lot of politicians that use big fancy words to distract us from the problems and the real work that we have to do. But that wasn't distraction. What Ms. Gorman did right there was inspire us, right? To raise us to a higher goal, to inspire us to work harder, to do more, to set our sights, farther out to where we really need to get to. And, I know Omari and I were texting back and forth during the inauguration, and we were both tearing up this morning. It's just, what a proud moment.
I'm glad.
She's so amazing and so majestic and so wonderful. And I feel so privileged that we got to listen to that this morning.
All right. Well, inauguration, got a new president, got a new vice president, got a lot of work to do. We'll see what happens. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we're getting down to the, I guess you say get down to business, the local business of what's going on in Olympia, as well as what's happening in City Hall. And that's why we have Kevin Schofield with us here today. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury, joined right now with Kevin Schofield. And Kevin, let me go ahead and put this up here on the screen. State legislature takes a big swing at police reform. And now this is something we actually carried the hearings the other day for these two bills, in what you had Mayor Durkin, Lisa Herbold, the mayor of Tacoma, a few other people actually testified. But you wrote the article, man. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is the second week of the state legislative session, and it's one of their long sessions. They alternate years between long and short sessions. They got a couple big priorities this year. One is obviously running budget, but one of the other big ones is police reform. And there's, I think, already about 12 different bills kind of going through the legislative process, and they're still early, so there's probably still more they're going to get that are going to get introduced. Looking at use of force, banning chokeholds. Licensing and decertification of police officers. So if they get fired from one jurisdiction, they can't just jump to another one and get hired on immediately there. But there are these two bills that there was this hearing on last week, which are really getting a lot of the attention right now. One of them, Senate Bill 5055, is really about arbitration reform. And rather than letting police officers sort of do forum shopping between a couple different ways of appealing a disciplinary decision against them. It says, okay, there's going to be one that's going to be run by a Civil Service Commission. There's going to be, the state is going to choose a set of arbitrators, and there's set rules for how that has to go. So collective bargaining agreements like the SPOG agreement here in Seattle can't sort of game the system and play it and create, ways to kind of maneuver through it. It's set at the state level. And that's kind of a theme through both of these. That let's set a bunch of this stuff at the state level so that we don't have to try to figure it out, individually, and cities and towns and counties don't have to all negotiate their own set of rules around this. Let's just do it once, do it right at the state level where the power is. But the big bill is Senate Bill 5134. And that, I look at this and I say, this is let's fix everything that's wrong with the SPOG contract bill, right? Because everything that for the last several years, the city of Seattle and all of us have been complaining about are problems with the SPOG contract, things where the power that police unions have under state and federal law allowed them to negotiate a set of things that were really undermining. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me stop you right there, because I want to play a clip. And actually, we did this interview with Inspector General Lisa Judge. We played this clip yesterday, and the full interview is actually going to air tomorrow at 8 p.m. after Clapback Culture. But this is what she talks about right here. She said that the power of her office as Attorney General, and also some of the OPA, it's been limited because of collective bargaining and police contracts.
I think the bigger question, though, is that authorities that were given in the ordinance to my office, to the OPA, were curtailed by the last collective bargaining agreement with SPOG. And so, I think the bigger question really is, are there things that the state legislature can do or that can be achieved in bargaining that ensure that accountability entities have the right authority and the legitimacy to do their work without.
Yeah, there's a lot of this. You can see, listening to city, and county elected officials, a lot of them saying over and over again, like, we go into these negotiations with police unions and, as the underdog, right? They really have the power and the authority, and our ability to negotiate is really limited. So, and that comes from state law. So that has to get fixed at the state level. And it's really great to see folks like, Senator Jamie Peterson, who's really leading the effort on this big bill 5134, trying to push hard on setting a new set of rules and standardizing a bunch of stuff. And actually, one of the things you see in these bills is it says very clearly that a bunch of these rules that they're setting in place can't be negotiated away in collective bargaining agreements, right? They are not subject to collective bargaining at all. They are set at the state level and they're fixed.
Right. Well, one of the things that Inspector General Judge said is that accountability should not be negotiable.
Yeah, and really that breaks down to a bunch of different topics around that again, this one big bill are trying to accomplish. One of them is specifically prohibitions on what can be negotiated and written into these collective bargaining agreements. And there's a long list of things that probably about 20 different items that this bill says can't be negotiated in collective bargaining agreements. Everything from a lot of it having to do with the powers and abilities of civilian oversight entities like the Inspector General and the OPA, to how investigations have to happen, to the ability of police unions in these agreements to prohibit the public release of information about the investigations and all the information that's collected on them. So, a long list of saying, no, you can't put these things in collective bargaining agreements, and any collective bargaining agreement that has these things is by definition illegal and void.
Right. So what are the, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, what I was just going to say is that I think it's important too, when you talk about this, that is really important for the public to understand, because so many times these things happen again outside of normal community members' purview, and understanding that so much of it is about that collectivism, and that's how the power comes in. So I just appreciate that you said that and mentioned that, Kevin.
Yeah. What are the chances now? What are the odds on this actually, some of this stuff actually becoming law?
So, the fact that the Democrats have strong majorities in both houses in the state legislature and control the governor's office, and the governor seems to be pretty well behind this. I think there's a really good chance that something is going to come out of this. The real issue, and you heard this in the hearings last week, is that labor, the best you could say is they're split over this, but there's a lot of sort of the labor advocates in the state who are really opposing this bill at this point. They think it goes too far. They think it undercuts sort of the power of collective bargaining, particularly with public employees, and they're really worried about a lot of things that are in this. So we'll have to see, as the negotiations go forward, because labor is super powerful.
Labor. That's what I'm saying. Is well, a few things that I took away from the hearing is there are some police organizations that support this. Quite a few. There were some that were against it. But what it comes down to is the labor and the unions, because individually, these state legislators, man, that's really who helps get them elected, is when a union gets behind them, a union endorses them. Unions are financing campaigns. And so the unions ultimately, I think, are going to either overtly or covertly have a lot of influence here on how these legislators vote down in Olympia.
Yeah, I think one of the weird things about the politics of this bill is that, as we talked about many times, you get outside of Seattle and King County, and there's less support for police reform and much more support for police officers. The whole Blue Lives Matter and Thin Blue Line and all that is a lot stronger in the redder parts of the state. And that's going to be a lot of pressure, particularly on the Republican members of the state legislature, but also some of the Democrats that are from more kind of purple areas, Pierce County and things like, places like that in the state. And it's really unique and interesting that this is a bill and a topic that's united the people who strongly support police officers with labor. You don't see that very often. That's not natural bedfellows in the state.
The King County Labor Council actually kicked out SPOG. All the unions in the King County Labor Council, they voted to actually kick SPOG out. And so that's where you say it's interesting now to see this. And one of the things that we've been kind of looking at is who are the unions that voted to kick SPOG out, who might very well now be the same unions who are coming out against these changes down in Olympia with collective bargaining.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of attention on that, right? There are several big, powerful unions in the state who represent public employees, not only here in Seattle, but throughout the state, and they're going to weigh in very heavily on this, on all the different parts of this bill, right? There are other parts of this bill that deal with setting a state standard for disciplinary appeals, for what are the grounds for discharging officers. There's a big long section of this bill that says, for about a dozen different things, if an officer is found to have violated those rules, then they must be fired, right? And so, I think there's clearly going to be amendments to this bill before it gets a final vote. We'll probably see some softening about parts of it, and that's not all necessarily a bad thing, right? So, the bill says, for example, any finding of excessive force by an officer is grounds for discharge, right? So, but you even look at SPDs, how they define use of force, and they've got 4 different gradations from kind of the lowest level of I caused pain when I put handcuffs on a suspect, all the way up to firing a handgun, firing their handgun and shooting someone. And if a police officer, their use of excessive force was they used the second lowest kind of force instead of the lowest force, is that grounds for firing them? Maybe, maybe not. But as this bill is written, there is no there's no room for for interpretation there. If they're found using excessive force, they must be fired. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be some good debate about nuances like that come out of this. So look for a bunch of that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be some hard decisions about what's going too far and what's not going too far.
Yeah, you know what, and Kevin, when we talk about the unions being a major part of this and how they kind of sway on this issue, I think it's also important to think about the individuals that make up the unions, right? I mean, that's where that collective power comes from. And a lot of the times, these decisions are then known to the union members outside, like, oh, that's where we went. Like, hold on, I'm not sure that I agree. And then you see another wave of collectivism through the union members. So this is going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out.
Yeah.
So Kevin, another thing, you've been following this Sentinel event review over at the OIG?
I know they've been continuing to work on it. I haven't been watching it too carefully. Just sort of full disclosure, I have a family member who actually works for the Office of the Inspector General, so I try to stay arm's length away from that to make sure I'm not introducing.
We'll keep you at that length real quick, and I'll explain to everybody. And actually, we're airing this tomorrow after Clapback Culture, so 8 o'clock tomorrow. Spoke with Inspector General Lisa Judge about the Sentinel event review, and basically what that is like after there's a big event, a bridge failure or a plane crash, all these people come back together and they try to piece the plane back together, see where the failures were, and try to come up with new policies, right? Because you don't want a plane to crash again or a bridge to fail again. And the Sentinel event review, what they're doing is they're looking at the events from the summer in totality, and they're looking at policies. And I think one of the things people find with the interview that we did yesterday with Director Meyerberg is he's like, hey, man, all I can do is judge something against the policies. I don't make the policies. I can make recommendations, but I can only judge an officer against the policies. What the Inspector General is trying to do, my understanding, is to talk to community, to the city residents as a whole, as to what their experience was around the protest, and then be able to come up with some policies on that. I talked to Mayor Durkin yesterday about her position on this Sentinel event review and what she would like to see come out of it.
Around the issue of policing here in Seattle, and just talked to Director Meyerberg, and also I did a 1-hour interview with Inspector General Judge, which is actually going to air tomorrow night. And the Inspector General talked about the Sentinel event review that her office is undertaking to look at the events of the summer, especially Seattle protests, a lot of stuff on Capitol Hill, and get feedback from community and make policy recommendations. I want to know, what are your thoughts on this Sentinel event review, and what are some of the things that you would like to see come out of it?
So I think this is really important, and I think just your 2 interviews show how important oversight is. You have both OPA, who you talk to at length when they come out with their recommendations that look at individual actions. And then you have the Inspector General, who's looking at it globally to say, how do we get it better? Because only through stress tests and these kinds of events can you really see where the deficiencies are. So I think there's a number of things that I really am hoping that she can give us more information on. Obviously, we want to get more information. The community wants more information on the evacuation of the East Precinct. But there's more than that. Is how do we get to a better place so that when we have mass events and we have peaceful protests, that there's a way for police to interact that doesn't repeat what we saw last summer, where we had, as you saw with Andrew Meyerberg's findings, the disproportionate use of force in many times, particularly around the areas of blast balls and tear gas. To fix it, we got to know what we did wrong and what we did right.
So the plan is, like I said, that they're going to be talking to people. They're having these sessions. People can email, they can community sessions, Zoom, all kinds of different ways to be able to give their feedback. And you told me you haven't saw the interview I did with Meyerberg yesterday, but he said he's close to closing out the books on who ordered the evacuation of the East Precinct, and he promised to come back to the show to discuss his findings on who closed up the precinct, who ordered the closing of the precinct.
I think we're all dying to know what happened there. I mean, it was it's clearly one of those crazy heat of the moment things, but there still has to be accountability. Right. And what's interesting, just coming back to, the Senate bill, one of the critiques that was brought up last week for it was that, with all the, these efforts, in this long bill to kind of clamp down on all these things, it doesn't do anything to hold management accountable. Right. And this is an issue around who decided to, abandon the East Precinct. That was clearly a management decision. Who's accountable for that? What is the accountability for that? And we need to make sure, as we spend all this time doing good work and important work on, on collective bargaining agreements and police accountability for frontline officers, that we don't lose sight that there is reform that needs to happen in management and supervision as well.
Let's see what happens out there, Kevin. In Olympia and also here in the city, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting what happens with the Sentinel Event Review. You need to catch up on the interviews, man. So I got the one on Meyerberg, and then tomorrow night at 8 p.m., Inspector General Lisa Judge talking about the Sentinel Event Review. And so, with that being said, we're gonna let you go, Kevin. We got Nikki back there waiting for the coronavirus update. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks. Have a great day.
See, and all you didn't cut him off short this time.
There we go.
He actually got to say goodbye. We're going to take a short break real quick. When we come back, we got producer Nikki Barron with the coronavirus update. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. And it looks like we got producer Nikki Barron with coronavirus update. What's up, Nikki?
Good morning.
Hey, Grand Rising, Nikki.
Good morning. Good morning. You look a little fuzzy, Nikki. What's going on? Are you letting Kevin Schofield show you up today?
I know. I don't know. Maybe I'm I don't know. Maybe I'm uploading or downloading something.
All right. Well, either way, we can hear you fine, man. A lot of stuff going on, and the number, everybody talks about the big number, 400,000. We saw President Biden, at the time, Vice President Biden, over there at the National Mall in a moment of reflection for 400,000 Americans who have now died of coronavirus. But bringing it back here to local, to state of Washington, what are the numbers?
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So another 1,373 coronavirus cases and 37 deaths have been reported in Washington state, bringing the total number of diagnoses to 291,989, including 3,940 deaths. We've also had 16,642 people hospitalized in the state of Washington due to the coronavirus. We're currently sitting at an 80.5 hospital ICU inventory, and that goal is to stay under 80, and we've been previously tracking about 87, 88, so this is really great news. And our positivity rate decreased down to 10%. Yesterday it was at about 17.5%. And the goal for positivity for King County is 4%. For the state of Washington, it's 2%. So it's really great news that we are going down. Nationally, not such great news. We've just hit 24.3 million cases nationwide, up 185,000 cases since yesterday. We've lost 402,000 lives in America so far, and 2,770 of them were yesterday. So not looking good nationally, but for the state of Washington, we're starting to see that, holiday peak start to go on the downward trend. So keep it up, everybody. Keep up those masks, social distancing, following the rules. We are one of the best major cities in the entire country as far as COVID numbers go. And when I look at the stories come out of Los Angeles County and places like that, it makes me really proud to be a Washingtonian.
Man, remember when we started the morning update show, going on almost a year now in a few months, we started the morning update show. I think it was less than like 10 deaths in America. I mean, the numbers might have even been in the single digits or the double digits. She just said 402,000.
My gosh. I mean, the way that we're reporting on these numbers, it's showing how it's spreading. And I agree with you, Nikki. I'm thankful that we live right here in Washington and that there's a lot of measures being put in place to ensure that we're safe. Again, we see it in the way that the numbers hit across the nation. I mean, it's a real thing. So thank you for making sure you mention that.
All right. And now tonight at 6:15, you're flying solo tonight, kiddo.
Yes, I am flying solo. I'll be giving an update, focusing mostly on the vaccine changes. Ever since the Trump administration rolled out new ruling or new recommendations about the ages for vaccination, things like that, we have made some adjustments here in Washington state. So tonight I'm giving an update on mostly the vaccines, how you can get one, how you can sign up, Phase Finder, all of that good stuff. And yeah, I'll be flying solo for my first time without the big O.
I'm sure that you're gonna do just fine. You're such an overachiever.
I'm gonna spend the whole day prepping like this.
So make sure. So okay, all of our hardcore convergers out there, make sure that you guys are tuned in tonight at 6:15 for a coronavirus update with producer Nikki Barron, and give her a lot of moral support there in the comments. We'll talk to you soon, Nikki.
All right, see you later.
All right, we're going to take a short break right now, and I think me and Trey are going to chop it up a minute here. It's Inauguration Day. We'll discuss our thoughts. You're watching the Morning Update Show. All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Now you were stuck in traffic earlier when we played the actual oaths of office of President Nat Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Let me play Kamala Harris just taking the oath. I want to get your thoughts.
What you are all about to be part of America is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first African American, our first Asian American, and our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, it is my great privilege to welcome to the inaugural stage the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Trey Holiday.
It's great. As a Black woman in America, to be honest, I mean, I know that there's a lot of celebration going on today. I know that there are a lot of people that are just proud of this moment. It is so historic. And to be honest, I am elated. I mean, Kamala looks gorgeous, by the way, right there in her royal purple. I got to say that, I've gone up to this point being like, we got so much work to do on the ground, so much work to do on the ground. That's where so much of my mind stays a lot of the time. And, today to see the inauguration actually happening without a hitch, no issues, to see Black brilliance represented on that platform in particular. I'm elated, honestly. It's giving me a lot of great energy. Shout out to Joe Biden for choosing the proper and perfect running mate. We do have work to do on the ground, and we'll see how they shape up, man, in these next 4 years. We're definitely not going to stop pressing them, that's for sure. But it is definitely a historic day.
I'll be honest with you. So definitely, it's a historic day. And both of you guys walked the halls there at Howard University as well. Different times, of course. But that was probably the best strategy that Biden could have ever had, is because we see in so many places in America that were very critical is the Black vote that made such a difference. Absolutely. And, Kamala Harris definitely energizing the Black vote. I mean, people were already kind of energized, but, her being on the ticket really got Black voters out. And so, she's more than just a figurehead vice presidential pick. I mean, it really tipped the scales.
It really did. And I mean, again, shout out to so many amazing Black women. When they talk about Black women showing up for this election, in particular, Stacey Abrams, among so many others, that really press for folks to get out there and vote. And we see this as a historic day because, again, the first woman that ever is taking the vice presidency, taking this oath, happens to be a Black woman, an Asian woman. I mean, to be honest, it is historic. I think so much of my life, I thought, that honestly a white woman would be the first. And so it's just historic for so many of us that have been watching this nation, so many of us that really have had a lot of, honestly, distrust in our political figures, in those who are talking about enacting change. There's a lot of communities out here that are really ready for change. And again, I'm really hoping and encouraging almost this administration to show up and show out in that regard, because there's a lot that still needs to be done. And honestly, they got a lot of work to do ahead of them, but I'm excited that it's the two of them in tandem, in partnership together, that are going to make it happen.
All right. You heard Trey Holiday say it. They got to show up and they got to show out. So we got 4 years to watch and see what happens. But, a historic day nonetheless. Every inauguration here in America is a historic day. Winds of change, a new administration, and we'll see what happens. It'll also be interesting to see. We talked about it on election day, or when they finally kind of announced the winner a few days after election day. And we talked about, what change will we actually see in the Central District of Seattle? What change will we see in the South End? What change will we see in Skyway and some of these other neighborhoods that are there? Because a lot of times, regardless of who's been in the White House, the Black community here in Seattle and the Seattle area has been in constant decline. So I think this is a very good day. New presidency, inauguration. It's always a good opportunity to have hope for the future. But I'm always mindful of how is our neighborhood going to be impacted. And if a lot of these politicians who have a lot of exuberance, which they should for what's happening on the national scale, I'd say, man, keep that same energy. Keep that same energy when it comes to our neighborhoods.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Oh, and I also have to say today that realizing how many people, we do historical pieces here all the time, and realizing how many people gave their lives to see that poet laureate, Amanda on the stage, to see Kamala Harris taking this oath. Honestly, there's so much blood that has been shed that we owe it to them. We owe it to them to really, again, show up and show out. All of us who are community organizers, folks that are like here at Converge, community media, we all have a duty to really press forward. Right. And I'm excited for that, because really, again, I had to say that because that's what got me so welled up today, is thinking about the millions of people that gave their lives so that we could see something like we just saw today.
We say it all the time here at Converge, man. Don't you got to take it off autopilot. We can't continue to outsource leadership and outsource accountability. We as the citizen stakeholders need to be active participants in what's going on around us. Few programming notes here. So tonight at 6:15 p.m. coronavirus update show. Nikki Barron's flying solo, so we want to make sure and support her. Thursday and Friday, I'm out of here. You got some guest hosts.
That's right.
So tomorrow we got Justin Carter from CapitolHillSeattle.com, and Friday Mike Davis. Mike Davis is going to be in the house on Friday. He's going to be co-hosting. So taking a few days off.
Good for you.
It's been hectic. We've been doing a lot. So taking Thursday and Friday off, maybe even Monday. We'll see. And also don't forget that tomorrow night. So tonight 6:15 coronavirus update show. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. is Clapback Culture with Julia Jesse and Mike Davis. And tomorrow at 8 p.m. is the interview with Inspector General Lisa Judge about the Sentinel event review. Before we get out of here today, Trey Holiday, any last words?
You know what? I mean, it's already a great day. I want y'all out there to make it an even greater day. Again, remember those who have given their lives, take it in today. And if you're not doing any work, figure out what kind of work you can do to move the movement forward.
All right. With all that said, we're right on time at the top of the hour. The Morning Update Show is back tomorrow with Trey Holiday and Justin Carter. Until then, peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song. dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rise.